Hi everyone, welcome to another podcast here on Family Matters. I am very excited. Well, you know I'm always excited by having wonderful guests along, and today is no different. But this is one of those people and projects which I just think is incredibly special. So welcome Marina Young from Buttons Project. How are you, Marina?
Hi, Simon. It's great to be here and see
I was
you.
just saying before we came on to camera, it's been too long since we caught up in person, but I've continued to follow your work. I just think it's amazing what you're doing. So, as I say, thanks for coming on the show. Tell us what Buttons Project is all about.
Right. Well, Buttons Project was founded by my husband and I, and it was birthed out of our own abortion experience and journey of healing in that. And we started it back in 2008. And our vision is to provide mental, emotional, and spiritual healing to any person who is affected by abortion, whether that be the mother, father, or other persons involved there. And it's really evolved and grown. And I suppose in a way, when you say that, it's bittersweet, isn't it? It is there to bring healing and journey with people hurt by abortion. Yeah.
And what's part of the dynamic? I mean, I obviously know, having engaged with you over the years. Tell us a little bit about how people, and it's linked to the name, of course, how do they sort of express some of that, if you will, the grief and memory? How do they do that?
Well, initially we kind of said there was something about sending in a button. I find to start the journey of healings, it's acknowledging that there was a baby there. And often that's the first step in journey of healing. And it's something tangible because there isn't always a grave to visit or other things. So, and a button is easy to get. So people would send in a button and then they would add their words to it, a story or just a sentence or and so we started this, and I never forget the first button I received. Apart from our first button was hope, for our baby Hope, and for the future that we can make a positive difference. But the next button was from an elderly lady who said, "Thank you for allowing me to acknowledge my baby that was a backstreet abortion." And she named him Simon. And she sent this little button, and that was the first time. And I thought, wow, this person was elderly in a rest home, and this was the first time she was acknowledging the baby. And I just thought, she's carried that for a very long time there. So
Yeah.
that was the start.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I won't go into particular details, but in sort of wider family. Again, an older woman wrote her history, so it wasn't a button, but wrote her history and talked about her abortion, which in itself was quite, moving the way that she expressed it, but very much echoing what you just said, Marina, that was something like that mother with their baby Simon carried that for years, and as a secret too.
Yeah.
I mean, from your work and experience, and obviously again, Buttons Project plays into this, how is it that we create an environment where, both the men and women involved around abortion can feel safe and accepted to actually come and speak about what happened?
Yeah, I still feel it is a taboo subject, that because often that people perceive that a person's made this choice, and the person that's made this choice don't always feel that they have a right to grieve and acknowledge this baby. And so that's why often it goes in silence. And it is enabling that safe space for someone to connect, to allow their story of grief and loss to be validated, because there's many factors that have surrounded that decision. There's people that get coerced, or they're just, for us, I was 20 and found out I was pregnant. I didn't know my dad. I thought I was repeating the past. Pete's parents said you'll never get ahead in life, that you're best to get rid of it, it'll always be a burden, financial, and all these factors come into your decision, and you feel, okay, I'll just, for peace sake, I'll just do it and it'll be over. But as we know, it is not the quick fix you think it is. And the void that hits you afterwards, and being in a room of other women crying, it's a side that you never hear about.
Well, it's part of what society tries to say at the moment, isn't it? That there should be no grief, no sadness. There's no problem whatsoever. But you're speaking obviously from your personal experience, but all those people sending buttons in too, that there is a lot of grief and people wanting to express and talk about what happened.
Yeah, yep. Their grief needs to be validated. That's the start of healing, really. But being suppressed, it's kind of, you're not going to live life to the fullest. You kind of go in survival mode. We call it the grey zone. You exist and might continue life, but it will take some other trigger, another loss or something, and it does affect your emotions and the ripple effect on your relationships. And even with your partner, high percentage, I think it's close to 75%, will not stay together following an abortion. So even those for some might think, might be pressured to save their relationship, often I found, and with the many people I've spoken to, whatever, those relationships have deteriorated afterwards. And so it's created walls and mistrust and in there. So it has that ripple effect.
Well, this is why I think it's so important to talk about, and again, why I really admire the work you do, because it is, as you said at the start, it's a taboo subject at all levels, not just about abortion itself, but consequences, relationships. It's just pushed to the side, and certainly in my limited experience compared to yours, a number of women who have held that grief so heavy in their heart, and that's why I think the ability, as you say, they choose the button, I assume, and write their message and send it in. I mean, that's
Yep.
great healing in it.
Well, the amazing thing with that, when we started, and we've kind of evolved from that in the sense, actually providing more healing, recovering programs for women and men. We're trying to get that off the ground. But there's something about some of these buttons are handmade. Some of them have arrived gift wrapped. I mean, the thought that's gone into it. I even received a button from prison from a gentleman there who had heard about buttons. I don't know how, but he sent in a letter and he shared his story about his girlfriend had a termination, and then he ended it with, do other men like me go off the rails following, and then there was another prison button from a woman's prison, and it affects all walks of life, right? You can't put people in a box and say it's just this lot of people, but it's across all cultures, all walks of life that can be affected by this.
Oh, look, 100%. And it's only an analogy, but I found it with drug usage, where you often think it's lower socioeconomic groups, but actually it's right across society. And if I was to put it quite crudely, the wealthier are better at hiding it. So, not just the drugs, but the problems with it.
Yeah.
Well, personally, I think it's just amazing too that it's not just the button, as you say, but they get to express their story. And I assume you'll be engaging with a number of people. Do you always reply to them? Is that sort of part of the process of Buttons Project?
Yep. So when we receiving physical buttons, those that gave their address details, contact, I would always reply to acknowledge that I'd received the special button. And if they wanted to talk any further, and let them know of resources available. Then about 3 years ago or so, I felt to start the virtual buttons memorial. So it's online and they send a virtual button. They might take a picture of a button and they send it in and submit it online. And people can check that out on the website. There's over 150 or so on there. But the neat thing about that is they submit it online and it's got their email. And so I'm able to reply and give them the links, and if they want to talk about it and support and that available, which is awesome.
Oh, I think it's quite wonderful. So, do many then engage further with those resources you provide or the wider support that you've talked about?
Yeah, what I've found is some people might reply straight away. Sometimes it might be a few months and it might be a significant date of either when the termination happened or when the baby would have been due. It triggers them to do something about it. So they will connect. And often I'm happy to talk via video call, phone call, or if they're within Auckland, meet in person. We'll find a way to communicate. But Buttons is actually, it's also international. There's Buttons arrived from India and there's Buttons Project Australia. So it's kind of, that's the wonderful thing about internet, right? So
Sorry, trying to unmute myself here. The button's gone sticky. Look, I think it is the wonderful opportunities. We often focus on the negatives of social media, but even as we're doing this podcast now and as you're connecting with these, I assume primarily women, the technology that we have now, like Zoom and Teams or whatever, is just
yeah.
revolutionary. And it's now part of that healing which you're providing, that conversation. If you don't mind me asking, is there sort of then a sense of community? Do some of the people who have submitted buttons in and through you connect themselves, or is it pretty much you're the hub and everyone sort of an individual spoke, as it were?
Yeah, well, I also network with a wide range of people, pregnancy centres, counsellors around the country, even some places overseas. But what I find is even if we do an abortion healing program via Zoom, you know, to be sustainable, you can't always be there for everyone for a long, long, long time. You're contactable, but peer support is also important. And we do have a closed Beyond Abortion peer support group via Facebook, and that's closed, and there's like about 100 joined in that. You know, different people need that, some people don't. We normally work out a way someone might click with someone else and be in their area and just be that extra support in
That
that
is,
process.
which makes sense because I was thinking to myself, you know, from when you started with your and Peter's button, and then more and more people, it becomes even more than a full-time job if you were trying to communicate constantly with everyone.
To be honest, I think I could easily do this full time, to be honest, but you just do what you can with what you've got. And but our thing has always been to try and be available where needed and to share and speak if invited and whatever. To just, it's to bring more awareness. If there's more awareness in education, then if someone knows someone hurting, they can say, hey, reach out here. Or at the same time, someone might be facing an unintended pregnancy and needs to be fully informed of all their decision making. And that's been another factor as well, that whole educating. So, and unpacking that of their real fear of continuing the pregnancy and beyond. But the main thing is compassion and non-judgmental, realizing that every person has a story behind them and what's brought them to this place and time, and it's allowing time to hear their story. So even though there might be a common thread of having an abortion is looking at each story unique in itself to allow that person to be heard and their story to be validated.
Something I feel quite strongly about myself. Very clearly I
Mm,
hold strong pro-life views, and if we're talking, I don't know, philosophically or ethically, objectively, I don't think it's a good thing. But in that pastoral sense, if I was to use that word, every woman going through this, and you've spoken eloquently
mm,
to it from your own
mm,
side, there's a whole lot of pressures and dynamics going on. And I remember years ago being interviewed by a journalist, and I just knew at the end, as she was grilling me on my views, she was going to drop the clanger that she had had an
mm,
abortion, and she did. But for me, as I tried to express both on and then off camera, it's like, yeah, everyone makes a decision, and it's not for me to make a judgment
mm,
on that at all. In fact, I get quite frustrated when people get quite dogmatic on this. It's like, put yourself in these people's shoes,
mm,
and shoes that you've worn as
mm,
well, and then as you do with buttons, trying to walk
mm.
alongside them. I'm curious, what's obviously you spoke about your button, and then the first one you received. What's I don't know, is it the quirkiest physical button, or what's the biggest button? Has someone sent like a massive button to you, or are they always just little ones?
Actually, I have got one like the size of a dinner plate, I would say. It's made out of uh, not plaster Paris. Yeah, it's been handmade. So I have got that's probably the biggest one I've got. And
That
then
is
there's been
fantastic.
real tiny, 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 tiny little ones, you know. And so I treat each button and story with respect. I those physical ones I actually collate and I keep in a file and in a safe place. We have put some on wall hangings and different things, looking at a safe place for that to be exhibited. These stories and buttons, but each button is put in a safe place out of respect for that person who's sent it.
Well, whether it's sort of part of the philosophy, and of course, buttons are what draw us together. It's what holds us together.
Mm,
I think it's wonderful symbolism. You spoke a few moments ago that you have an online or a virtual memorial now, so people can.
mm,
But I know that you are soon to have a physical
yes.
memorial, which I just think is incredible. You're working with a range of partners, and as I
Mm.
say, soon to open. Tell us about this memorial.
Yeah, well, probably about 3 years ago, I felt in my heart to actually find out in Auckland where the baby's ashes, the remains, were being sent. And so I did a bit of research, and I also said, because I am post abortive myself, I just want to know, to respect that. So I got advised about this cemetery in South Auckland and going by the oak tree. And so my husband and I thought, I need to visit this place. So my husband Peter and I went out there and we asked to see the oak tree. And when I went there, Peter and I just sat because we realised that there was no plaque or anything like that. But these babies were not forgotten by many. There was people leaving teddies, bears, and toys and little blood just put randomly all around, hanging up a mobile on the oak tree, and all I could think was these people. There's a lot of hurt out there. How do they work through this? These things are being left. They need something um, to acknowledge that. So I found in my heart, I went to the lady in the cemetery and I said, look, I'm Marina, I've got my own story, Buttons Project, and I just feel in my heart, is it possible to make this into a memorial garden? I said, I see people are putting things there and it's just spreading over sites. And I said, can we make this a setting for people to just sit, feel safe to be, reflect, and acknowledge? And she said, wow, I've been here for 6 years and always wanted to do something and didn't know how to start that. So it started the process of going to their board and putting this forward. And they said, yes, we're really willing to work with you on this. And I thought, wow,
Yeah.
this is awesome. So we we looked at, like, this process has been over 2 years, so it's kind of been quite a long process. But
I was
we
going to
got
say
the bench.
that's quick dealing with councils. Anyway, that's me being facetious.
Yeah, that's right. But we got the bench seat and the pavers and things. But I thought, it's not just the woman affected here, that men are part of that. And this memorial is a way to remember, to grieve, and to love. And I thought, how can I acknowledge the men to be part of this? And I thought, wow, I had heard once that there was a carving um, at prison.
Hmm.
And I thought, wouldn't that be awesome if from prison that they could do a carving for this memorial? And it seemed such a way out idea. And I thought, okay. So I approached prison and I had a Zoom, and naturally, initially they were thinking, "What's she on about?" Uh, and but I just shared my story, I shared my heart, and I shared the purpose of this memorial. And these two people looked at each other and said, "Hey, we need to do this. I had never thought about this. This could be a powerful way to allow men to work through their grief by working towards something." And then they said, "Can you come in and talk to the men?" And I thought, oh, okay.
do,
so
do I have to commit a crime, you asked, to come in, or I
yeah,
can just.
so there's always a lot of protocols you go through, but Pete and I went there, and I was blown away in the sense that they put on like a potpourri, welcomed us, allowed us to share. Um, and I was deeply moved by these men. And I thought, they can look really tough, even intimidating, uh, but they've experienced loss. And these men said, thank you for giving this space to acknowledge this grief. For those to work on something who, yes, have been affected by losing the baby to abortion, also other losses of stillborn, miscarriage, but this would be a journey, a grief healing journey. And that started it. And then it was finding the tree, Totara tree, and it was just so almost beyond me. It was building. I was thinking, oh, where am I going to find a tree? And we had friends that found one on the farm that were able to get a truck and a hoist and get it into the prison.
I was wondering where my Totara tree went.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Um, but the thing is, we did all that, and then they started working, and there was a huge cavity in the middle of the
Oh
log. So
no.
this what slowed our process. But then a suitable tree fell down at the prison, so which was suitable. So they've used that, and so we were able to get things going again. But when I saw the prototype for the carving, I was moved to tears because they had really captured the heart of this project. and they had read Pete's and Mine's story. We had written The Unforgotten Babies, which is our story about abortion and Journey of Healing and Buttons, and so they'd read that and just got into it. So I'm finally excited about uh, the unveiling finally kind of happening in October. Um, and, there'll be more, when that happens, there'll be more news about that. There's just a lot of protocols and, welcoming on the land and leaving prison and different things. And we're getting a bronze plaque made up about the collaboration between Buttons Project, the cemetery, and prison, and that this this place will be a safe place to find peace, to be, and just to allow the healing process in that.
Which is
So,
why what you do is so wonderful and amazing.
mm,
And I truly mean that. I just, from the moment years ago when I met you and learned about the project, I just thought there's a
mm,
wonderful simplicity yet depth
mm,
to this. And I just think it's great you've collaborated with so
mm,
many. Part of me, I'll be honest, Marina, is surprised that this has got off the ground. Probably more of a political comment because, there is
yeah.
that push to deny
Mm,
any harm with abortion at
mm,
all, that there's any consequences. And so for everyone from the prison to the cemetery to say, no, actually, we are prepared to have a memorial to these
mm.
children, these babies, is amazing in itself. And as
Oh, yes. I think it's pretty amazing, and I feel it's such a privilege as well. And part of that carving will have, um, even though we've got the virtual buttons memorial, the physical buttons that we've got well over 20,000 physical buttons. And so a lot of those buttons are going to be incorporated in the carving. So it's like laying these buttons as well to
this
rest
is
with other,
20,000 which have been sent to
yeah,
you.
buttons
Yeah.
over the years, yeah, accumulated. So a big portion of those buttons will be put with this carving, because it's also known that you're not alone. This is for many in there, and a place, yeah.
Yeah.
With it.
Oh, I just think I should have actually asked that at the start. So, what is the total amount of buttons that you've received over the years? Is it 20,000 or is it even larger than that?
It's larger than that now. I kind of
Gosh.
need to count a bit more,
That's
but
a lot of counting. Probably after the memorial is
yes.
unveiled. Can I say I think it's great that you're engaging the prisoners. I was a prison chaplain at the old Mount Eden many years ago, and they had
Mm,
carving there at the time, and it actually meant a lot to these guys to have first and
yeah.
foremost something to do, but when they had something to do with
Mm,
purpose,
yes.
that in itself is transformative, and I mean that's part of what Buttons Project is doing for them now.
Yep. Yeah. No, and they also donated over 50 plants for the garden as well. So it's been, I just feel deeply touched by the whole thing, that just sparked by idea, and people have really caught on to that um, kind of vision in the heart for it. So
Well, that's very
yeah,
much you, Marina, if I might. I mean, you've touched and helped so many people, and
yeah,
I think when we do that for others, there's always return. So, if people want to make contact or learn more about Buttons
mm,
Project, where do they find you on the web and social media?
yep. So the website is buttonsproject.org.in, just .org, buttonsproject.org. Also on Facebook and Buttons Project, and Instagram. It's actually the unforgotten babies. So the
Lots of ways
underscore.
to get in
Yeah.
contact, and obviously for those who are
Yeah.
wanting to send their buttons, but also that virtual
Mm,
option, which is great. Marina, thank you first and foremost for what you're doing, and you and
mm,
Peter, and what you're
thank you.
doing and bringing, well, that hope, that love, that ability to talk and to grieve. So very, very human. And thank you too for
Mm,
obviously the work you've led around the memorial project. I'm excited to see it. I hope I can come
yeah,
along
I
on
hope
the
so.
day itself. If I can't,
Mm,
I'll find another opportunity. And then thank you for making the time in your busy schedule to come and talk to us here on the podcast.
it's all right. Thanks for having me.